Watch how tensions explode in the House of Commons as Lee Anderson unleashes a furious attack that cuts straight to the heart of a growing crisis gripping communities across Britain. This isn't just politics, it's about real people and real frustration boiling over. Streets once considered safe are now at the centre of a heated national debate, and emotions are running high on all sides. Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Britain Daily. It's completely free and it helps us keep bringing you the hard-hitting stories that matter. Let's watch this explosive clip.
The reason I'm here in this chamber tonight speaking on HMOs is because I've been contacted by hundreds of families in Ashfield over the past 6 years to raise their serious concerns about the impact HMOs are having on my community. Anybody can set up an HMO overnight, no qualifications, no training, no checks. All they need is a few £1,000s in the bank, get a mortgage, go and buy a cheap house somewhere in the Midlands or in the North or in places like Ashfield, buy up a cheap terraced house, turn it into an HMO. But this leads to thousands of unscrupulous investors who live hundreds of miles away from places like Ashfield, buying up properties and filling them with people, quite frankly, that I don't want living in my community. People who are criminals, people who are out thieving overnight, people who are creating antisocial behaviour. They're filling our streets full of wrong-uns. And then the local politicians, the police, the councillors sit there scratching their heads, asking themselves why crime is on the up in that area. I will give way.
Can I thank the honourable gentleman for allowing me to intervene? Does he agree with me that local authorities such as Live Don't Control 3 US District Council in my constituency South West Hertfordshire should be issuing things like Article 4 directions in order to protect our areas from a proliferation of HMOs?
I thank the honourable member for his intervention. I do agree with the Article 4 legislation used to put HMOs through the planning process at local councils. It's something that I forced my local council to do, but unfortunately they're only doing it in certain areas. I'd like to see it across the whole constituency. I will give way, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm grateful to the gentleman for giving way, and I thank him for securing this debate, and congratulations on that. I wonder if he'd agree with me, and indeed the honourable member from Hertfordshire, that that should also apply to the Conservative-run council in Newcastle-under-Lyme, who should be applying Section 4 sooner rather than later.
Anderson.
I thank the honourable member for his intervention. I think that's a matter for local councils to decide upon. I know in my area HMOs are a big problem, and I'm glad that they've used Article 4 in certain areas. I'd like to see it rolled out to the whole constituency. But I get back to my point, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we have druggies, criminals, wrong-uns, living sometimes 6 at a time in one small house, on streets that were once considered a good place to live. And the decent folk who can afford to leave these streets are leaving in their droves. The problem there is that the investors, the landlords, then buy up their houses and turn them into HMOs. But the other decent people that live on the street, that can't afford to move, they have to stay there and put up with a life of misery. And this problem, Madam Deputy Speaker, is getting worse and worse. And I know the Labour front bench and the backbench MPs bang on about emptying the hotels full of illegal migrants. And nobody wants a hotel full of illegal migrants in their area. Nobody wants young fighting age males, 400 of them sometimes, from backward cultures that treat our women as second-class citizens. We don't want them roaming our streets. But the hotels are now being emptied. And where are these young men going to go? I'll tell you where they're going to go. They're going to go into a HMO, on the street, near people in this chamber, near my family, near my friends, near my neighbours. And we've had enough of this. We've got enough of our own homegrown nuisances in this country without importing even more to live in HMOs.
Well, the honourable member give way.
I will give way.
I'm most grateful to him for giving way. Does he share my concern that the growing proliferation of these houses of multiple occupation is leading to whole streets being transformed, communities being torn apart with no sense of engagement from those occupying these HMOs, leading to rubbish, to mess, destitution, disruption and utter chaos in streets and whole communities?
I thank the honourable member for his intervention. I think what he's trying to say, I put it more succinctly, is that these HMOs and the proliferation, as he says, is turning some of our areas into ghettos. Now, I've seen in Ashfield where, because of the HMOs being filled with the young men. Some young girls are frightened to walk the same streets. They've even changed their route to school. This is unacceptable. This is not right in 2026 that young girls, young British girls, are having to change the way they walk to school. It's not fair on our citizens. The illegal migrants I talk about have been dispersed amongst our communities in HMOs. As I said before, mostly young men from backward cultures. Some have medieval views towards our women and girls. Yet women and girls tell me they are more afraid now to walk our streets than they've ever been. Nobody deserves this. And to make matters even worse, this government, and the previous government, to be fair, have allowed Serco to hoover up HMOs on 7-year deals and fill them full of illegal migrants, which has meant it is even now more difficult for British people to find accommodation. And this has also led to a huge increase in rents in places like Ashfield. The increase in HMOs in places like Ashfield has meant that Ashfield born and bred people are becoming homeless in our own town. This is an absolute disgrace. Normal, hard-working people in Ashfield are being made homeless by companies and landlords seeking more profit as their homes are converted into HMOs. In Ashfield, there are supposedly 110 asylum seekers living in this sort of accommodation at the taxpayers' expense. And it is shameful that we've had nurses kicked out of the HMOs, nurses that work at my local hospital, the same hospital where I was born, kicked out of their HMOs because Serco has taken over the contract and they've been replaced by illegal migrants. We're supposed to be here in this place to make people's lives better, but we're making it worse. But there is a solution to all of this, because HMOs should not be the problem. It's the management of HMOs that's the problem. I recently spoke to Richard Pursglove in my constituency, who runs Pursglove Property. Now, he's housed thousands of people over the past 15 years in HMOs with zero antisocial incidents. And he told me that done properly, HMOs are a convenient, affordable housing for nurses, key workers and single professionals. Now, I agree with him. HMOs can be a good thing for people in need of housing. I think we all know that. But the problem is there is no regulation around HMO management. HMO management is different from a standard let. When you let 6 unrelated people, normally men, live together with no checks in place, what could possibly go wrong? Well, there is plenty going wrong. And it's making the lives of residents in my constituency a complete living hell. HMO owners can't do DPS checks, they can't use Clare's law, they can ask difficult questions to potential tenants, but the applicants have no obligation to answer truthfully. But what could we do to make HMOs in our communities more acceptable? Well, legislation for one, licensing for HMO managers and owners, qualifications, training, accountability. Landlords and managers must also be held accountable for managing their properties as well as disruptive behaviour. This should be a condition of any licensing granted. We need vigorous background checks on all tenants. There should be a separate licensing agreement or a tier for agents housing higher risk people, people with mental health problems, vulnerable adults, etc. There should be access for licensed HMO managers to proper safeguarding tools, as I said before, DBS checks and access to Clare's law. There should be a statutory limit on how many HMOs can open up in one particular area. And my last ask, Madam Deputy Speaker, for the Minister is to stop placing illegal migrants in HMOs, detain and deport for the sake of our young women and girls. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
That was a truly explosive moment in Parliament, and it's one that's likely to spark serious debate across the country. What we've just seen isn't just political theatre, it reflects a deeper frustration felt by many communities who believe their concerns are being ignored. When people start to feel unsafe in their own neighbourhoods, when families begin changing routines out of fear, it stops being a policy discussion and becomes a personal crisis. At the same time, these issues demand careful, balanced solutions. Strong words may capture attention, But real leadership requires action, accountability, and policies that protect both communities and the values Britain stands for. The question now is simple. Will this pressure force meaningful change, or will it fade into yet another unresolved political battle? Moments like this remind us why these debates matter. They shape the future of communities, the trust in leadership, and the direction of the country itself. If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Britain Daily. Your support helps us continue bringing you the biggest and most important political moments exactly as they happen.